All right. Well, welcome everybody to the meeting tonight. Everybody should have gotten a few things in advance of the meeting, including the agenda and a few attachments that we'll be talking about a little bit later on. Before we dive into that, though, I do just want to take a minute to introduce myself. I believe I've met a few of you out and about, but for those who don't know me, my name is Daphne Daly. I am a planner in the County Department of Planning. I work in the Western sector alongside Alex, and my primary area is just south of Pikesville in the sort of Liberty Road corridor, Security Woodlawn area. So welcome everybody, and I think, is there anybody else that feels like they'd like to introduce themselves? Anybody who's unfamiliar to the group? I'm sorry, I don't know who's regulars versus guests.
No, but I would just say to Tom, we can only see like practically just the top of your head. Yeah, that's much. Now
That's the best part, Ruth.
that's where your big brain is. Okay.
No, let me see if I can do it this way.
Okay. Well,
It'll be better.
that's better. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. I am going to start off the meeting with following our agenda, some planning department updates. And by way of that, I'm going to turn it over to Director Steve Lafferty to talk to you a little bit about what we're thinking. So Steve, you want to take it away?
Thank you, Daphne. Appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. Good to see so many people this evening.
Hi, Steve.
As you saw from Gane's email, Alex Layham will no longer be the planning department's liaison with the Pikesville Revitalization Action Plan Committee. Tonight, Daphne Daly, who she was modest, she's actually the Western Sector lead, as well as handling basically Liberty Road and District 4. I know that Alex has worked with you for a number of months. She's been complimented on her facilitation efforts, and I think she's really advanced your efforts to the point of potential funding for some of the projects that have worked through the process. But by pulling her back, we believe it's really going to be in the best interest of the department at this time as we continue to work on issues in District 2 and in Pikesville. We've made a commitment to helping make your chosen projects happen, following the recommendations that you made to the department for capital projects. That's one of the processes that you've been working through for a number of months, to set priorities and come back with some recommendations to us. And as you know, we've had conversations with the chamber about being the fiscal agent, so that we have a nonprofit entity on the ground who's working with us in a hopefully a little more efficient way than just going through the county's procurement process. So let me emphasize that the county funding is for capital projects, as you know, and their design and implementation. Unfortunately, this limits the funding that we have. We can't really fund operating costs that are not tied to a capital project. That is unfortunate, but that's the only resources that we immediately have at hand. As I've heard over the past number of months, including before the time that Alex became the community planner, it does not appear that the PRAP has collectively embraced and the direction that you want to go, that there are a number of individuals who have basically decided to focus on their own priorities and not the overall priorities of the PRAP. I've heard that meetings have often reflected internal conflicts and suggested a lack of perhaps even confidence amongst one another or even trust which then makes it really hard to advance the PrAP goals and to create a single agenda that the department can work with you to help implement. I've heard of incidents of rudeness and impoliteness that really shocks me because as people committed to your community, it doesn't really reflect well on you nor on what I think each of you are committed to, which is to helping Pikesville. I've been shown a number of extensive email back and forths on issues that, again, don't really, to me, suggest that you're sort of gotten to the point of working together to find your collective solutions. And using emails to nominate individuals when it's not clear those individuals have even agreed to serve, sending random motions without following the organizational structure that has been attempted through the organization committee to put together, and even really not working with the organization committee structure that at least I've been shown. It makes it really hard then for us to continue to work with you in this way, frankly. It's a really, I'm not comfortable saying that because we tend to take the lead from the community. We're not dictating to the communities what they want. We want to work with you, and the intent of the PrAP and the language in the PrAP shows a coordination with the county, shows working together to create a single direction that's going to better Pikesville. But yet we can't continue to support you when you're unable to even agree with yourselves about how you're going to get moving forward. And if it's the interpersonal dynamics that make this difficult for you to find common goals and common ground, then I think that's going to be incumbent on you to work through those. I cannot afford as a director to have a staff person who invests enormous amount of time and energy to support you as a group and then not be able to actually advance an agenda. In the plan itself, it indicates that we would facilitate at the outset, and then it would basically turn back to you to elect a chair and move forward with the process to help oversee the goal implementation laid out in this plan. So we would ask you to choose your leadership and set a structure that will enable you to implement the PrAP. I ask you to put aside your pet projects and personal agenda to do that in order to come to some collective direction that you can work on. It may not be your priority, but think about the betterment of the whole. I ask you to set a plan of action and set some clear priorities about which ones you're going to attack. And this probably calls for an adjustment to the timetable that's in the PrAP, because many of those dates have already bypassed. 21, 22, early 23 are no longer, viable. Reflect the entire membership of the Pikesville community. So we plan to step back. We're going to step back as a department and ask you to, as we take a pause, for you to really look at how you can work together and then come back to us. We're expecting or asking you to find some common ground, to find some goals and strategies that are going to be effective in the short term, as well as look at the long term, to really consider whether or not you can put aside your individual priorities for the betterment of all. And in 2 to 3 months, we will get back together. And we know we have some work to do as a department. We know that there's already been 4 different community planners involved. Unfortunately, 2 of them left. Well, 3 of them left with Bill. That put us in a box. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to put together some shared and suggested benchmarks and recommendations for you that we think will be helpful as you sort of reconstitute where your direction is going to go. But I cannot have a staff person spend as much time and energy and not to see more fruit from the labor that's invested. We have too many other important things to do in the second district and in Pikesville broadly. So, as I said, we're going to step back and take a pause while you collectively work together to make sure that you're going to help us help you implement the PrEP. So, any questions?
I think those are good comments, Steve, and I think we'll take them to heart.
Howard, do you want to say something?
Ditto.
Howard, you're
Chris?
muted. You're muted.
I'm okay now.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat taken aback by your remarks, Steve. I wasn't aware. Maybe I'm naive, but I wasn't aware that all this is going on behind our backs. I'm trying to read between the lines. Are there people that have been in contact with you or the department that have expressed dissatisfaction with our progress and want the removal of Alex? I think Alex has done a great job. I think that she is a breath of fresh air. I think she's very competent. She's articulate. She's helpful. She runs a great meeting, and she's done a ton of work without a doubt. And I think we made progress, a lot of progress in the last few months. There was a period of time when we weren't doing very well, but I think we turned the corner. And I'm surprised, really surprised to hear that there's apparently a group or some individuals among us that are not working with the committee or against the committee's intents and purposes. So I'm kind of taken aback by this. I don't know, Steve, whether you can respond to it or others want to respond to it, but I'd like to know what's been going on.
Well, Howard, what I'll say is that information that I've been given and the efforts to move collectively forward, really with Alex's effort, there's a sense that people are not fully in concert to work with her. And actually, a number of the emails I've seen suggest that efforts undertaken either by her or by the organization committee and trying to put together some structure, have either gotten shut down or have been, basically ignored. And there's nothing behind anybody's back. I mean, the email back and forth that have taken place amongst members over time have taken a huge amount of time and energy to, work with, and it's not as productive. People can have differences of opinion, and that's very legitimate. But for our staff to basically feel they're not really getting the support that's necessary and end up really, where we are, I think is pretty disheartening. Kristen, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Kristen and then Mel.
Thanks, Steve, for those comments. And it's I think as a group we've made a lot of headway, but there is, I mean, knowledge. Honestly, there is, as with any community group, a lot of different. When you get a lot of people.
But Kristen, just a second. Could people who are not speaking mute themselves, please? Because there's a lot of background noise. It makes it harder to hear. Thank you. I'm sorry, Kristen.
Yeah, and with any community group, it makes it difficult. There's a lot of people, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. When you say the county will step back, what does that mean in terms of our projects? And I've asked this because as chair of the streetscape and design, we've already committed to some community engagement by having a booth and a local at the Sudbrook Park Arts Festival. We were planning on having a community charrette, but that was all contingent on supplemental mural funds. Should we, how is that? Should we hold off, or what do you
No.
suggest?
No, at the outset, my comment was we remain committed to helping to implement those projects that have already gone through your vetting process and got recommended to us. I know that internally, we still had some questions to be addressed, and I believe that's probably already been taking place. But no, those, we're committed still to seeing how we can implement those projects that came forward out of the committee.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mel, you want to go ahead? Oh, could you unmute yourself, please?
Okay, thank you. Just quickly, number one, I think Neville's comments were perfect, and Howard's comments about Alex was right on target. She's done a remarkable job in attempting to herd a bunch of enthusiastic cats. One of the things that has been lacking, as I said a number of times, is an actual formal chair to comply with the legislation for us to choose our chair. Absent a chair, it becomes very difficult, and no one is empowered, so to speak, to be the facilitator to reach common ground amongst a variety of sincere differing opinions. So I think some of that will be addressed once we have a chair. The organizational subcommittee has made some very fine recommendations that should be approved tonight regarding the nomination and election process for that chair to occur probably in April, and the role of the chair going forward. So I think some of this will be addressed as the chair gets selected. But again, Alex has done a fine job, certainly in some difficult circumstances. So I concur.
I never read it yet. And I think it's for 80-year-olds. Okay. All right.
Any other
So-
questions or Councilman, you want to go ahead?
Okay, good. So I'll talk to
Thank you.
her.
So, just, Steve, we had, I think $230,000 appropriated last fiscal year, somewhere in that range. And so everyone is gearing up on ideas on how to spend that money and how to implement improvements in Pikesville and how to implement measures in the plan. So I've got a meeting with the county executive on the 30th, which is 3 days away. And I've got additional asks for funding for Pikesville in the commercial areas. Now, it's a difficult ask if we haven't already spent the money that we've been appropriated. I'm going to ask it nonetheless because I have confidence in the group that we'll be able to move forward and start to implement some of the measures that have been described, so that by the time the next fiscal year starts, which is in 4 months, that we'll be ready to spend the new money for fiscal 24. But if we don't continue to make progress, it's easy for the county executive to say, hey, show me some progress and we'll allocate additional dollars to Pikesville. And I think as a group, all of us have to move off of point A and to point B and start implementing these measures. And I think it will advance the cause and also bring additional dollars for the things that, for the improvements that we all want.
And Councilman, as you know very well, if after a while capital funds aren't spent, what they call sweeping, and they basically reclaim them and reallocate them. And that is something we cannot afford to see happen. Now, some of the money from the original was already targeted for lamp post replacement, lamp post replacement. So that's a portion of it. Portion of it is the money that, as Kristen referenced, has been identified by the group already that we're going to work towards making those projects come to life. And then additionally, as you probably know, there's a tier request from DPW&T for some sidewalk improvements already. So there are things that the county is committed to doing. We need this group or a reconfigured group to help us sort of move things ahead in a civil, polite, direct, and cooperative way.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir. I don't know your name. It's listed as EIB on your.
Thank you.
Your
My name
program.
is Eric Benzer. I don't know
Thank
why
you.
it's up as EJB, but those are my
Okay.
initials.
Okay.
Steve, Mr. Lafferty, thank you very much for your time and your comments tonight. I think what it really goes to is the heart of the lack of collaboration and dysfunction in Pikesville, not to what the county wants to do or not do. I think that whatever organization is at the tip of the sword, it needs to be a legal entity that is led by solid elected leadership, that is an insured entity, and that is ready to be a moderator in the community to see that things are done effectively and intelligently. And Alex was great. And I'm glad that she was able to report back to you some of the behavior in this community that impedes progress. So thank you personally for your leadership. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Tom, and then Ruth.
Tom, you're on mute.
Yeah. Let me thank you, Steve, for being here tonight. And let me thank Alex for hard efforts. And I think we have tried very hard. There have been disagreements. There have been strenuous disagreements. There have been email blizzards, partially because as a group, we have been really unable to find a way to work together. It's very difficult to operate in a mode where we have a monthly hour-and-a-half meeting via Zoom, looking at people's faces in a little box, and then try to engage in a discussion that leads to mutual trust and a regard for understanding what everybody's priorities are. I concur that this is up to this group, perhaps with assistance from Daphne, to figure out a way that we can move towards consensus on our priorities and on our projects. I think the structure and our meeting times and our meeting capabilities need to be broader. And I think we need to truly get to know each other a little bit more than a face in a box. There are faces here I don't know. There are names here that I only know by name on a route list. That is not a way to operate efficiently or effectively or a trustworthy matter. So I truly look forward to this group finding its own leadership and finding its way. And maybe it will take a couple of months to do that, but we have spent a year and a half, almost a year and a half now, with very little to show for it. So I think we all ought to be eager to get on with some getting to consensus on most of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Tom. That to me suggests a couple of things. One is I was under the impression that you have working committees, committees, and they probably need to be, if they haven't been, meeting in between the monthly meetings. And secondly, I think we've seen this in other contexts in other parts of the county. It may be time for an in-person meeting. I know that's more of a struggle with schedules, but maybe that's time. This is the time, and as you move forward, that you bring people together physically at the library or someplace where people can actually sit and have a conversation and not just be a box on the screen. Those interpersonal reaction or relationships are critical to the success of an organization. Ruth, do you have?
Okay, Ruth, and then Beth, and then Mel.
Thank you. That's a lot to digest, and Steve, and then everyone's comments. So I'm just going to take things in order, and maybe you can answer, but I have like several questions to ask. First of all, I'm going to go to the last thing first because it's on the top of our mind. You're talking about meeting in person versus meeting on Zoom. And I know that there's been, a schism in this group on many, many issues, and that's one of them. And I have to say that there are a number of people I'm looking at on this screen who I have developed real relationships with over the last couple of years. And some of them didn't meet in person until, maybe a couple months ago or something at the, if at all. So I feel that there are so many advantages maybe to each platform, but the pandemic is still going on. There are still people who are vulnerable. There is no new booster for seniors. It's, it's in the offing, but it hasn't come yet. And it's been a long while for some of us since we had a booster. And as I said, I've formed some very, very good relationships with people over Zoom. So I would not be in favor of that personally.
That's not for me to decide. I just threw that out, but that's not for me or us to decide. That's for you as a group to decide.
I agree, but I'm addressing it because Tom raised it and you raised it. So so I'm responding to that one issue because it came up just now. So that's my opinion about that. Steve, I'd like to ask you, after the approved projects that are in the pipeline, which includes the lampposts and mural and placemaking consultant and project manager, what is left that needs to be spent, I assume, or allocated by July 1st? And does that list that I just gave you include also the sidewalk improvements? Are they coming out of our pot of money that was left to us? And what is the balance?
Maybe Daphne or Gane remember what the balance would be with the light posts. We got a pricing on the light posts that were different than what Bill initially had. I think it was almost triple the amount. So I don't know. I think if all 37 light posts are to be replaced, that's well over $130,000. I believe the mural was 20. But there was a belief.
No, the mural is 10, I believe. We have 10 from the Spruce Up grant. And then Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, then we asked for 10 from the county, so it's 20 altogether. Is that correct?
Yes, so Daphne is going to provide you with an update on the projects after this.
Okay, I'm just, that's great. I mean, an update is great. Steve mentioned that we have to spend the money, and Izzy alluded to it too. So by the time we're done, if we could have like an actual figure of what's left that needs to be spent before the next round comes, that would be helpful. That's
Yes.
all. I'm asking a number.
And no,
Okay.
it does not include the sidewalks. The sidewalks are entirely different. out of
Great,
Public
okay.
Works.
Good, thank you. That's helpful. So you answered, that's 2 of my questions. Number 3, who is EIB again? I'm sorry.
Eric Fencer.
Eric, yeah.
Eric mentioned a legal entity, I think, and I didn't follow what the actual pitch was, but my understanding is that hypothetically, the chamber would be the legal entity for all of the legal nonprofit entity for all of these projects for the money to run through. So I don't know if that is what Eric was referring to or had in mind, or if it was something.
That was exactly my point, Ruth. Thank you.
And so you're saying yes to that?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so that was my understanding also. And then, hold on, I've got my little points here and they're numbered. Steve, this is a two-part question. What does stepping back for a few months look like to you in practice, and taking into consideration the schism that you identified in this group that's making it hard for us to function? Does this seem like the right time to pull back entirely? And it's sort of, just to use an expression, it sort of sounds like letting the inmates run the asylum. I mean, maybe we need a little more, a little less us and a little more you. I'm posing that, but what does stepping back look like?
It means that our staff are not going to be directly meeting with the members of the PRAP. And we ask you if, in fact, you come back and say, we want guidance on A, B, and C, then you can come back and we'll have that conversation. As I also said, within the next couple of weeks, there are some possible benchmarks and recommendations that we will send to you, and you can use them or ignore them. But leaving it basically to the group to decide what your next steps are without our involvement.
And what about my my observation, which I know is shared by several people, at least here tonight, that that this seems like an odd time to step back when the group is having as much difficulty as it is, just because something is decided by the group doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best decision or the most functional decision going forward. And it seems like maybe the county needs to exert more of an influence, not less.
Well, we've been involved and this is where we've come to, Ruth. So I don't know that remaining at the table and having so much time and energy drained from my staff is valuable to my department.
Yes, and I hear you. It's been very labor intensive and time consuming, but the solution may not, it may suit the department, to put less manpower into this group, but it may not accomplish the goal that you're looking for. If we're dysfunctional already, how's this going to make us more functional?
I trust that you as adults are going to figure that out.
Well, that's assuming that all of us are adults sitting around this table.
I think it's a matter, Ruth, in which we have to become adults. So it's up to us to promote our own salvation. And I think Steve has laid it on the line. I think it's clear. And it's up to us to get going.
Ruth, did you have any more questions, or
No, I
should
just
move
saw
on
that
to-
my hand was still up and I just lowered it. And thank you all for allowing me to work through my whole little list of questions.
Okay, so we had Beth and then Mel.
Hello, everybody. Beth Reingold. I'm the president of the Greater Baltimore Chamber, if any of you don't know me. So my question is, and Steve, this could be directed at you or maybe Daphne. I know the county says that they will be stepping away from the PrEP committee. Does that also mean the APC committee? And does that mean, Daphne, you are our new point person, but you will not be our point person for at least 3 months? Do I understand that? I'm not clear on how that's going to work.
We are not going to be providing staff support for the APC or the PrEP committee.
Okay. Does this set a precedent for other communities who are participating in revitalization efforts? How does this sort of fit within the model for the county, and Daphne, I believe I heard that you're going to be part of the Liberty Road revitalization. So is this unprecedented? Is this kind of an anomaly because of, Alex's experience and the turmoil that has come out of these meetings?
All I have to say on that is that I feel like every group is different because every group is composed of different personalities, people who work better or not as well with each other. And so I think some of the struggles that I've heard you all have in terms of trying to find your mojo in terms of working with each other has been, very unique to you. I would say, as far as setting a precedent, it's not setting a precedent for those same reasons. And as we continue to work with different groups that are either in existence now or that may be formed in the future, it'll be a matter of trying to find the right structure, the right working relationships based on a few different things. Number one, who's involved, what the actual group is charged with doing, and what the different resources and needs are based on that. So I think it's just it's a unique situation. And perhaps if we were starting from ground zero, we would look to do things a little bit differently. But this is where we are now. And I do think that, Steve has given some good direction, and we'll follow up with some additional things that we think would be helpful to the group in terms of addressing organizationally, procedurally, things like that, that hopefully will get things going in the right direction and really building on some momentum that you're just now starting to see as these projects are being recommended for implementation.
Just one last quick question. There's this 3-month timeline of the county stepping back from PrEP. My concern is if the committee does not meet the benchmarks that the county provides it with, if there is a failure in leadership, that's going to set us back with projects, despite the, not including the ones already approved, right? But, my concern is that could set us back in time even more, more and more of a delay is what I'm trying to say. And is there sort of a plan if there's an entire failure of leadership here?
I have more confidence in that, Beth.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Okay, Mel, you had your hand up, and then Kristen after Mel, and then Ruth.
How about now? We're
Yes.
okay?
We're
Okay,
good.
thanks. First of all, I think Steve is right on target, actually. The legislation calls for us to select our chair, as I've stated previously tonight, and frequently I've said that some of the lack of motion forward, Tom has mentioned lack of motion, is caused by the lack of anyone having the chair. And a chair can guide towards reaching common ground, and that will facilitate our opinion, and it'll address a lot of the concerns that Steve has expressed that he has. The Office of Planning stepping back is perfectly in tune with the legislation. And this issue was broached about 6 months ago, and it got put aside. And now we're here, and the agenda tonight calls for us to decide on a process by which to select a chair, and we should move forward on that. Lastly, I will agree that with Ruth's request that the committee be provided with a little more precision about precisely the numbers and what we must spend. Again, I will point out that the full committee recommended to the Office of Planning the approval of some monies to be spent, and certainly we are awaiting the decision by the Office of Planning on those requests. So I think we ought to move the agenda forward and get on with perhaps selecting a chair and having that structure set. Thank you.
Okay, we have Kristen and then Ruth.
I'm just going to say, can everyone try to remember to mute themselves when they're not speaking? Because I'm hearing a lot of background noise that makes it hard to hear everyone.
Thanks, guys. To get a little clarity on the 3-month step back, will it be a, say, check-in in 3 months, and then where you check back with us and say, hey, where are you guys? Or will you give us, say, some metrics that you're looking for, that you would like us to achieve? It's kind of hard sometimes to measure, the level of disorganization versus organization. It can be a gray area. Is there anything specific that you're looking for in the next 3 months?
As I indicated before, we in the next couple of weeks, we expect to send some recommended benchmarks and other recommendations that we would be looking for when we reconvene.
Perfect. When you said benchmarks, I weren't sure if there was project-based or organization-based. Thank you.
Ruth, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi. Well, I I will, try to approach this positively, but I have to agree that that we have made some progress, and I would hate to see us backslide. I think that we have had a functional chair throughout this process, especially particularly like really only since Alex joined us. Alex functioned as our facilitator, and that is generally how I see the role of the chair is to facilitate the execution of the PrAP. So we, in my opinion, we have not been without a chair. Otherwise, there would be no agendas. Nobody would be sending out a Zoom link. No one would be interfacing with the various subcommittees. So I think we've made progress because we've had a facilitator. On a positive note, and I was going to say maybe that will end the discussion, but now I see Susan's going to chime in and Susan always has something substantive to contribute. But I just wanted to respond to Tom to say that I know that there is a general, not a general, there is a pervasive expression of impatience that we're not getting anything done and we need to move quicker, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, I think when we get to these reports, I'm not saying that to be critical. I'm saying it because I've heard Tom is not the only person who's ever said that. It's a sentiment that I've heard. And I think when we get to the reports, I think we're on track to accomplish a number of really substantive things. The things that are in the pipeline are absolutely great, will be great accomplishments as far as the PrAP is concerned. And just to have some perspective, from the time that we started talking about the armory was about 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago. That's how long it's taken. And there still hasn't been a shovel in the ground, but we know, that it is going to be a huge success. I don't even have to mention all the reasons we know that, but it doesn't look like anything is happening. But a lot is happening, and it's taken that long for the armory. It's still not visible. And with this committee, a lot is happening, even though it's really hard to see the progress. It's not all on the surface all the time. So don't take heart. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Ruth. And so we have Susan, and then Tom, you have your hand raised. And then I would like to see, just noticing our time, and this has been a really great discussion, and definitely we need to make sure everybody has an opportunity to weigh in. But I do think that we want to make sure we cover some additional parts of our agenda. So, so Susan, and then Tom, and then if there's anybody who has something that has not been shared, please feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, I would love to move to the rest of our agenda so we can have some things that we've accomplished here from that. Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll try and be really brief. I totally hear the planning department director. All of the things that have been listed that we have been apparently using the planning department staff for are normally parts of what an organization does. And then they bring their decisions to the planning department, and the planning department becomes a link for what capital funds or what can be done to implement it. So I have a background, I've probably said it 50 million times. I started out as a community planner, and did a lot of planning and actually started my job the same day Izzy did. So we go back, but I'd be happy to help in terms of like group methods kind of things to get us more on the same train, all going in the same direction. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Tom, do you want to share
Yeah, I'm
something?
going to be very brief. Yes, I am impatient. I really would like us to get to a point where we stay in a meeting long enough to reach an understanding and a consensus. And Daphne, with in all due honesty and with all due respect, what happened 2 minutes ago is what has been really giving us trouble. An hour and 20 minutes for a meeting once a month. Granted, we sometimes talk in subcommittees, again, in this kind of manner, gets very, very difficult. Hopefully, we have reached a level of understanding of what Steve is saying and acceptance of what Steve is saying, because I think he is correct. We need to work this out ourselves. This is a very small group. This is what, 17 or 18 people. We need to figure out how to get each voice heard, how to get to yes, and how to get those who are not at yes to say, I can live with that. And then get on and live with it and get on to the next step. But if we are forever in the box and saying, oh, hell, we got an agenda, we got to get to the agenda now, then no, that's not going to work. So, yeah, let's get on with the agenda, because I think the agenda is important, and we got to get approval of some very hard work that the organization subcommittee did. And whether we are fully in agreement or partially in agreement or 80% in agreement, get to the point that we can live with and get on with getting our own house in order. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay. So next on our agenda are, well, we're actually,
Daphne, let me interrupt you just for a moment.
yes.
Thank you, everybody, for your time this evening. And as I said, expect that we will be getting some benchmarks recommendations to you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, I do want to pick up with just a couple of continuing updates for you. At least this is what Alex had called them. So I wanted to let you know that the Department of Planning met to review your project summary worksheets that were recommended by the APC. And we also met with the subcommittee chairs to share the results of the review and discuss the next steps. So the mural supplemental was approved with conditions, and we have all the paperwork in order, I believe, to demonstrate that the permission of the property owner and grant agreement letter from Hi. So the next steps will be for 1,000 Friends of Pikesville to fill out and submit the grant agreement form so that that project can move forward. The second worksheet that we looked at was for the placemaking consultant. That also was approved with conditions, and those conditions included an agreement to coordinate the choice of the consultant with the Pikesville Armory Foundation. And let's see, placemaking project manager hiring will be assessed after the work of the placemaking consultant is complete. So we're looking at partnering with the chamber to fund the project manager to oversee the project implementation, So the need to hire a second project manager or to provide supplemental hours for the placemaking plan implementation is something that we'd want to assess once that's complete to see, you know, are we talking about a completely separate position, or is this something that could potentially be integrated into that project manager position? But we kind of won't know until we have that that plan to work with. So the next step is to begin the grant agreement for that project and to set up a meeting with the chamber to look at the fiscal sponsorship aspect of that and to complete their portion of the grant agreement. The third project that we looked at was the field sign removal, also approved with conditions. We have the property owner permission, and so the next step is for the chamber to contact the property owner. Oh, I'm sorry. The next step is for the chamber to contact the property owner for permission so that we can move forward with that project. And the fourth project was the Pikes Peak Promenade. Our recommendation was to have an urban design consultant follow the a process of gaining some community input, looking at a preliminary concept plan, and then developing a rendering idea off of those pieces. So we met with Mel to discuss the plan, and Mel said that he had already acquired a rendering at his own cost. So we are no longer considering the worksheet for the use of county funds. So those are the updates on the project worksheets. And if there, does anybody have any questions about those? And then Mel.
Sorry, I forgot to bring my hand down.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Yeah, Mel, go ahead. We can't see you, Mel, and we can't hear you either. So I'm
Confusing which is mute and which is not mute.
gotcha.
So observation about the mural and the placemaking consultant. I observed that not one mention was said about partnership or consultation with the Pikesville Revitalization Action Committee. We requested the funds through the committee, through the planning, and it's curious that while you mentioned other partners, the Pikesville Revitalization Action Plan Committee is not one of those. Could you comment, please?
No,
I didn't ask.
Since Thousand Friends of Pikesville is the fiscal sponsor for that, can you hear me? There's a lot of background noise. Since Thousand Friends of Pikesville is a fiscal sponsor for that project, I will just clarify, it is a joint project with the Streetscape and Design Subcommittee. It is clearly, absolutely incorporated with the Pikesville Revitalization Action Plan Committee because it's the Streetscape and Design Subcommittee who we're partnering with. So I'm not sure.
Well, it was not mentioned by Daphne in that presentation. I just wanted to make sure that clarification was clear.
Well,
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully it's crystal clear, but thank you.
And regarding the placemaking consultant?
Well, I know
it's not yours.
Kristen can answer to that, but it's the same. It's Streetscape and Design.
Yeah, they're all working jointly with APC because they're all under the Streetscape and Design.
Right. and we're part of APC, you know, I mean, yeah.
Well, it was curious that Daphne did mention that. So I'm glad you guys made sure that you're a part of it. Thank you.
Mel, I'm just reading from the notes that that Alex gave me. So if she didn't make a mention of it, it doesn't mean that it's not in there. But I know you all
Daphne?
looked at those worksheets, so I don't think anything has changed from what you reviewed.
So I can make a I can add something, but I see Deb's hand is raised.
Yeah.
After her.
What is the status of the program manager that Beth was going to be hiring?
The what?
So the
Beth was getting money, was getting a grant to hire the program manager. What is the status of that now that we're going on hiatus?
So it has been submitted. It's under grant review. It will take another 2-3 weeks. Then it's going to be sent for the 14-day to county council. So after that, if there is a formal approval, then we're going to start, you know, doing the signing. But it's under the grant review right now.
I guess what I'm asking is there going to be a time delay on that while we're trying to get our act together?
No, I'm sorry, there is no time delay because it has already, the process has already started. Remember, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks or even sometimes 10 weeks in order for the grant to be approved. So no, there is no delay on that.
Great, thanks.
Deb, and that's one of the things I'm going to talk to the county executive about on the 30th, on my meeting on the 30th with them to advocate for that.
And one project that was not on the list today was the lamppost. I just wanted to let you know that we have started conversation with DPWT. The number of lampposts that were identified, you know, back when Bill was a planner, was 37. And that was from, I can't remember, I think maybe Sudbrook all the way to the city line. So what we are doing right now is trying to reassess that, you know, the conditions of the lamppost. So that can take 8 weeks, up to 8 weeks for the for DPWT to come up with a new assessment. And once we get that, we'll do prioritization on what locations we will be, you know, replacing first. We got a first quote, and the quote that we received was about $3,700 for one lamppost, which is more than what we had, you know, quoted for. I think we used like $1,000 per lamppost. So we need to do, you know, go back and see and do a prioritization, but we will let you know, you know, as that process also evolves.
Okay, any other questions on the project, status of the project worksheets? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to our main business for this evening, which is to look at the APC chair role and responsibilities and nomination and election procedures. So these were 2 attachments that you received in your email. And hopefully everybody has had a chance to look over those. Those were formulated by the organization subcommittee. And as we've heard already tonight, will go a long way towards helping this group to kind of take a new step in terms of their leadership. So let's see, is there anyone from the organization subcommittee that wants to give us a high-level overview of these 2 documents, or does anybody feel like we're ready to have some discussion about them and move to a vote?
Well, several of us are here. but I mean, I'm happy unless anybody objects with it, been up for discussion. I think everybody's had time to read them. And I just wanted to give kudos to the committee. We met 3 times since the last APC meeting, and we are a committee with a lot of different voices and we don't always agree, but we always come to agreement in the end. So I just want to thank them for all their hard work.
Okay, let's take these one by one. Let's take a look at the role and responsibilities for the APC chair first. You all have had a chance to read over that. Is anybody in favor of making a motion to approve the roles and responsibilities?
I'd like to make a motion.
Second.
I'm sorry, who is the second, Mel?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the APC chair role and responsibilities as written. Is there any discussion on that?
Call a vote.
Okay, hearing none. Give me just 1 second here while I pull up the voting.
Can we do it by acclamation? Or
Sure,
raising hand?
Let's do process
Don't even,
Does
no,
anybody object? Yes.
Excuse me for 1 sec.
Yeah.
That is only to point out that from what I can gather, I don't even recognize every name, but not everybody here is a voting member. There's some staff, and then there's a couple names that I don't really recognize. So it would be hard. I don't know whether you want a record of how people voted or if we could just do what Mel suggested. But not everyone here is a voting member.
Yeah. Daphne can count them. I'm sure she can.
Yeah, I will. I have the list that Alex provided me, and so I can compare that with the folks on the call here. And let's do it this way. Is there anyone who objects to the motion?
It's fair enough. Hearing none.
If not, then what I will do is compare the folks on the call and mark everybody as who's on the list of voting members as an assenting vote for the motion.
Sounds fine, Daphne,
Good.
to me.
Okay, great.
Well,
Okay.
actually, I'm going, even though I worked on this in the subcommittee and was part of the consensus, I'm going to abstain because my position has been throughout that this is not the correct time for us to be voting for a chair.
Okay.
Thanks.
I've marked you as abstaining. Thank you, Ruth. Okay. So hearing no other objections, the motion carries. Let's turn our attention now to the nomination and election procedure for the APC chair. Is there a motion to approve that document as submitted?
This document is a little bit confusing, but I think it's got all the basic ingredients that we need. So I would like to propose that the document be accepted.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the nomination and election procedures? steps, and then Tom.
Larry, Ruth, I believe we came out of that meeting and we said that this was a one-time only.
I just emailed you, Deb. I don't recall the discussion. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either, but Ruth said that this was only going, because what I wanted to do was make it more in-depth and, you know, more streamlined and at the same time. And I believe, Ruth, you had said that that we crafted this document only for this election.
I do not specifically remember that, but I won't. I
Yeah.
won't call you a liar, but I don't. I
That's nice of you.
I remember a discussion, Deb. I remember that we discussed it, and that there were. I remember a discussion about it, but I don't remember that was exactly what my position was. But I do remember that we discussed it.
That's fine. So this is a document that would carry us forward until we decided to change it. Right?
If I were looking at everything in it, I don't know if you want to do a screen share or anything, or if not, it's not necessary. I think we're always, we have an organization committee if we thought that something needed to be changed or done in more detail, we can. So I think that goes almost without saying.
Great.
Larry, do you remember, or Neville,
remember that
exactly
discussion,
what that
yeah.
was, or whether it needs to be discussed anymore now?
I think for the time being, we're looking towards the election of a chair at the moment. Let's just move towards that, and we'll worry about anything in the future. So I've made a motion, and I'd like to propose that we move ahead.
Well, there's another hand up, I see.
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded. Okay.
But
Tom,
Tom
did you?
had his hand
Yeah.
up.
I would like just one piece of clarification. We have a process that's really very spelled out and very appropriate for an organization much bigger than the 17 or 18 people that we have. But what I would really like to hear from Neville, who wrote this up very capably, what is exactly going to happen once we approve this procedure?
Okay, it's my understanding that we're going to be basically doing the following, and let me just put out my notes on this. Okay, we've got this over there. I think the basic thing is that at the March meeting, which is today, we're going to announce an election of the chair at the April meeting, which is probably going to be April 24th, and calls for nominations, seconds, and resumes to be introduced then or emailed to her, to the organizer, who in this case will be Daphne, and would be mailed no later than April the 10th. So basically, we want to get nominations, seconds, and resumes to her between now and April the 10th. So that is the open window for nominations.
May I make a correction, please? So though that's the timeline in the proposal, but because we are having a pause for the next 3 months, so you could actually do this within internally, but not sending it to Daphne, please.
Who distributes it? Who distributes the nominations?
So you could actually, in the interim, just nominate someone or designate someone who's going to be working as that, who's going to be helping lead your meetings and your
Oops.
communication in the interim.
Well, this was a little bit the puzzlement that we had when Steve
Yeah.
indicated that he is backing away from this, that we've actually got a month gap in this situation. I would have thought that we could make use of the planning office during this interim 1-month period just to do this small task. If this is a problem for the planning office, I would imagine that we can take care of that. But I would have suggested that for simplicity's sake, that Daphne handle this task, which is relatively small and should not entail too much time on her.
I understand, but I think Steve's message was clear.
Good.
That the planning department will be doing a post for the next 2-3 months. We will be sending you some benchmarks to work on, and then we'll check back on you just to make sure that you are ready and if you need our support.
Yeah, right.
Okay. If we need to substitute someone else for that, we can appoint
Simple.
an interim person. I would suggest that we move ahead and then appoint an interim person that is satisfactory to everybody. And
Simple
so they
enough.
would be the person who would be receiving this information and applying it. As I say, I think it would be more neutral if planning did this, but if you feel that that is inappropriate, we will take care of that action.
Thank you for your understanding.
Okay?
Yeah.
So basically, whoever it is, let's say that between now and April 10th, we should receive the nominations. The nominations that are received outside that window are not valid. So we're saying that between now, which is the 27th of March, and April 10th, we get nominations. At that point, they will get distributed to all members in the
Voting
following
members.
week. So at the April 24th meeting, we introduce the cabinet, the candidates, and ask each to say a few words. We could toss a coin to establish the order of speaking and then proceed with the election. So at the April meeting, we will have an election, so we will have a person pro tem to handle it until then. And other than that, we should proceed as planned. And that is in line with the procedures that were developed by the committee that was headed by Larry.
I've had my hand up.
Yeah, Ruth and Councilman Patoka and Mel.
Yeah, thank you. Let me put my hand down. I had asked if we needed to put the nomination document up on a screen share for a minute, and I wish we had, because I now remember the one thing that was omitted, that if things hadn't gotten away from us, I would have brought up, and I only noticed at the 11th hour, and that is that we had discussed in the organization committee in this document, nominations could also be taken from the floor. And as far as I remember, that was agreed upon by all of us, but it didn't make it into the final document. I don't expect necessarily that there will be any nominations from the floor, but it's so customary, and it was something, speak up if you remember differently, but it's something that I think we all, Larry, are you shaking your head, yes or no?
Yes, that can be from the floor at today's meeting.
No, that was not,
Well,
today's meeting has nothing to do with nominations from the way I understood the documents, the document that we all worked on and agreed to.
Well,
But
there
I
is a
did-
conflict. There is a conflict, Ruth,
Let me,
and that is between paragraph 3, which is over here, members are required to submit their intention to nominate to the designated facilitator at least 2 weeks in advance of the nominations and election meeting. So any
Yes, but
nomination that arrives
however,
after the
that's
2
not
weeks is
what
not
we,
valid.
but that's
Ruth,
not what, excuse me, that's not what we agreed on. Alex wrote this up, and that is not, that last sentence, that second sentence, I was at all those meetings, and I think several of us were, and I never remember that. As I said, it's a contingency. I don't expect it to happen, but I don't think I would have said something at the time if that had been part of our understanding. We talked about nominations from the floor. I don't think we said no to nominations from the floor. Alex inserted this.
This
Are you
is the
suggesting?
document that we're using, Ruth.
What I'm saying is, it was very helpful of Alex to synopsize everything that we did and to put it into a document. And there was a lot of like email back and forth and everything. But what we agreed on, and Larry, you're really best positioned to speak to this. I thought that it was very routine that nominations would be accepted up to 2 weeks before the meeting. If the candidate wanted their nomination and resume and everything to be distributed, and if they weren't within that window, that nominations could be made from the floor, but they wouldn't have the advantage of having had their materials sent around in advance. And that is absolutely how I understood it. And then this document appeared, and I think I had document fatigue at that point, but this is not what we agreed to as far as I remember. And I wonder if Larry has any memory about this.
Ruth, I don't. I'd have to look back at what we looked at in what Alex came up with initially. I'm trying to find it, but I don't.
Anyway, I don't think nominations were ever expected to be made today. The only nominations I understand would be made either by email or on the floor at the time of the election, which would be a month from now. And I'm not sure how we came up with the 24th. I don't know, is that I don't know what day that is or anything, but
I think that's it would be your regular meeting date, the fourth Monday.
oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Ruth, would you like to make a motion that that point be added to this document? And if you would, please make the motion and we can vote on it.
Okay, so for clarification, I would like to move that the second sentence in number 3 be struck, and that we insert instead of sentence something like nominations, like for clarification, nominations can either be made by email with in up to 2 weeks in advance, or on the floor on the day of the election, and they would be seconded in the same, if you nominate it's April, make sure I'm saying it right. It's April 24th. The election has happened, and I've decided to nominate myself or someone else, and I've lined up a person to second me. So it would work exactly the same way, just that a person being nominated on the day from the floor would not have the advantage of having had their materials sent around in advance. So you don't have to say all that. I'm just explaining. No, what I'm saying is strike that second sentence and say nominations and seconds may be made from the floor on the day of the election. if that
Okay.
makes sense.
If I may, we still have some hands up for our discussion. We also have a motion on the floor. So,
Hasn't been seconded.
yeah. Oh,
Has-
no,
No, it has not been
no,
seconded.
I thought you
You mean the
seconded
motion I
it.
just
No,
made?
no, no, I didn't second it, but that's okay.
Do you mean the motion I just made?
Yeah, your amendment motion.
Oh, so would anyone second that, or is that a problem?
second.
Who was it? Oh, Jack, thank you. Okay.
Okay. I want to make sure I give everybody who had their hand up for discussion originally a chance to speak. So Councilman, if you want to go
Thank you,
ahead.
Tom, for moving that along. Thank you, Tom.
Councilman Patoka, do you want to speak?
I had a different point on something that happened a little while ago, so I don't want to stop the momentum that has just been initiated on this particular vote. But I think it's important to continue the momentum so that if you're finding common ground and move beyond this point.
Okay.
Does that mean that we should just vote on that motion?
Yes,
You vote on the amendment. You vote on the
On
amendment.
the amendment, I'm sorry.
just find common ground and keep moving forward.
Okay. So,
Any discussion on the amendment?
What is the amendment?
The amendment is that
I'm
we
going
strike.
to make the correction here. You should be able to see it on your screen. We're amending the third point here, right?
Yes, the second sentence in the third, in point number 3, would be stricken and substituted with something like nominations may be made from the floor and seconded on the day of the election.
I'm sorry, Ruth, can you say that again?
I think what I'm trying to say is nominations may be made from the floor and seconded on the day of the election.
Thank you.
If that makes sense. And if it belongs there, I just know that that sentence that we deleted, I don't think it's what we intended to say.
Okay,
Tom,
and so should we say then here, rather than members are required to submit their
yeah, yes, are
intention, say,
invited.
members are encouraged?
Daphne,
No.
invited,
No?
invited.
Okay,
I thought about all this when I saw it, and I just didn't respond to Alex. I would say members are invited to submit
I
their.
would just say
intention.
members are to submit their intention to nominate. And
But
There
if
you
say
go.
R2,
Brilliant. Brilliant.
then no. If you say R2, it's the same as required.
No,
And what
it's-
Daphne
no.
is saying is if you're allowed to also take nominations from the floor, then that's not the only, then it's not required that they be submitted 2 weeks in advance.
If they're all there together and you simply say members are to do this, and you have a following sentence in the same item number 3.
Oh,
it
okay.
doesn't-
All right. If that's how you read it, that's fine with me.
Oh,
As long as one doesn't preclude the other. If the first doesn't preclude the second. Perfect.
Jesus.
Every word is important. I know it's tedious, but that's what the organization committee's been doing for the last month.
The word partner.
Thank you. Pardon?
Okay, do
Okay,
we have, are we satisfied with 3 as an amendment to this document?
Ruth, is this accurately reflecting your amendment then?
I think so. If
Okay.
anyone can make it any better or clearer, please do. But because
Okay.
I'm saying it on the fly, but I definitely thought all this
I
stuff in
think-
my head.
Okay.
I
So
think,
we have a motion and a second to approve the amended language. Is there a further discussion?
Tom has his hand up.
yeah, this this makes no sense the way it's written. You can simply say, members may nominate to the designated, blah, blah, may. Nominations also may be made from the floor and seconded on the day of election. As long as those nominees have their because number 4 says include the name and a bio. So the person who is nominated from the floor needs to have a bio because the rules are the same.
That's okay, except that really the bio and everything was, you know, if you don't submit a bio, there's maybe less chance that you're going to get elected. It's to your disadvantage to be nominated on the day of the election, but I don't think that we meant that it was a requirement. I think we were saying that if you're going to send it in advance, it was really an et cetera even. It was like a short bio, an introduction, et cetera. I mean, it wasn't I didn't think that we were saying it was a requirement.
To me, and I used to write all this stuff all the time. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If the group wants people to submit their bio and information, then everybody submits it. I mean, to me, you're creating two standards.
It was if you want to, you know, if you want to have an edge by submitting your materials in advance. And then I made a couple suggestions, like a short biography or your connection to Pikesville. That was another thing that Alex left out. And then it said, et cetera. You know, it was not it was not meant as a requirement. It was meant as a way to, if people wanted to do this in advance and have a leg up. But if someone wants to just be nominated from the floor, they don't have all those advantages. They don't have the advantage of sending their bio around in advance and everything. It wasn't meant to be a requirement.
Well, it's written as a requirement.
I know, because Alex, I love Alex to death, and this is not a critique, but Alex wrote it up, and I, for one, had document fatigue, I guess, and I didn't come back an 85th time or whatever, because there's just been so much work on this and so many meetings that we did attend, but that is not exactly, you were all there, and I remember seeing the words in print, short biography, your reason, your connection to Pikesville, et cetera. It was just a suggestion of what could be submitted. And I'm not going to live or die on this hill, because I don't even think there will be nominations from the floor. I just think this is the way this is just such a customary way that elections are done.
Okay.
Okay,
Could we please call the vote on
Yes.
the amendment, please?
Yes. We'll just do a voice vote on this. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay. You know what, this can't work. I'm sorry, you have to call it roll.
But make an amendment to number 4 then.
No. I think having a voice vote with 15 people talking on Zoom is not gonna work. I would like to have you call the roll. It'll take 2 minutes. And people vote aye or nay. And I don't even, and on the original writing versus the current setup. Will that work?
Original, well, I didn't understand the last.
No, the motion on the floor is to approve the documents, the procedures, election and nomination election procedures with this amendment. So we are voting on this, and I am happy to call the roll.
It's on the amendment, Daphne, I'm sorry, it's
Right.
on the amendment. And then once the amendment is either approved or not approved, then the document is amended or not amended, and then that vote takes place. This motion was on the amendment that Ruth offered. It has extraordinarily gotten confusing. It is pretty simple, in my view, and you should have a roll call on this amendment. It is pretty simple. The nominations shall be closed on April the 10th. Anybody who'd like to nominate from the floor can try to do so. That's
No,
it.
no, that is not what I'm sorry, you weren't at those meetings and
I'm not,
that's
I am not addressing, Ruth,
effective.
I have the floor. I am not addressing what happened at the meeting. I'm addressing your amendment, period. And your amendment
not
has
saying-
gotten confused and it makes no sense. So therefore, I'm just offering an opinion that it should stand. Now, we can have a vote on the amendment, and then whatever the result of that amendment vote is applied to the original document.
Is there an understanding that nominations are closed on the April 10th? Because that would not, you could not have that stand in the same universe as nominations can be made from the floor. There was never an understanding in my mind that nominations are closed on the 10th, because then you would not be able to have nominations from the floor. So, you know, I want to make sure we're clarified about that.
Call the motion on
Guys, we have, we've strayed it from our business here. We had a motion to approve the nomination and election procedures that was not seconded. Ruth made an amendment to the language in number 3.
The motion was seconded. The motion by Neville was seconded by me. Neville made the original motion for the approval of his document, or that document. I seconded it. Ruth offered a motion of an amendment, and Jack seconded it. You need to vote on the amendment.
May I ask you, Daphne, as a matter of procedure, can you make, I made an amendment, can someone offer, or I myself, another amendment to number 4 to just change a verb or so to make it so that it's you may as opposed to you must submit biographical materials or whatever, so that it's not a conflict that Tom observed. We could remove that.
I
Can you
have a
make-
suggestion.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a suggestion. May I suggest, if you don't think that you're gonna come to a consensus now, because it's already 8:38, and I know everything is very important to you, do you think that you may need more time to work this internally, or do you want to go on a vote now?
I want to go on a vote now.
Okay,
Correct.
so can we do a roll call, Daphne, please?
I just want to clarify, we're doing a roll call to vote on the entire set
No.
of
Amendment.
election.
No, the amendment,
Amendment.
the amendment. You're
So
voting on the
just number
amendment,
3.
as Ruth stated it, her amendment to number 3.
Okay.
And it was, Susan suggested to be submitted. That's fine. Ruth accepted it as a friendly amendment. And then she adopted that, she motioned the second sentence to be, can be submitted from the floor. That's the motion on the floor right now.
Okay. I
But
I
Tom
don't know
has his
everybody
hand-
that's on here, so I'm just going to call the
has his
roll.
hand
If the
raised.
person is not in the meeting, then we'll just move to the next person. So,
Why don't we
Yay
just
or
stick our
nay?
hands up?
pardon me?
Why don't we just stick our hands up?
Yeah, we could do
Can you
that.
do that? Can you do that, Daphne? I don't know if you can do it.
Are
in
there
this-
any objections to this amendment? It's so easy, you know? Or is there more objections than people in favor? Are there objections?
I'd like to hear from Neville on this amendment.
This amendment, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think is going to make very much difference one way or the other. I'm not unduly
Call the
concerned. I'd like to move ahead on this. So my suggestion would be let's vote on the amendment and let's vote on the
Amended
proposal.
version. Correct.
I think we've met Ruth's request, and let's just move along.
Call the question.
It's what was printed on and was typed on that sheet. So I think it's all clear to everybody what we want to do. So we'll vote on the amendment, and just by raising the hand, by just clicking on the hand, and if we've got
That's a good
majority
idea.
vote on the amendment, then we vote on the principle.
I think Debbie, did you want to say something before we do? No, you're just saying yes, you.
Yeah, let's raise, Neville has a great
Okay.
suggestion. Click your hand button.
Okay, that's what we'll do then. So if everybody can either raise their hand, if you,
What are we raising our hand for? If we
Do-
agree,
The amendment.
The
there'll be
amendment,
nominations from.
the amendment.
The amendment. The amendment to the voting
And
procedure.
if you want to make another amendment, Tom, to fix number
Da, da,
10,
da, da, da.
okay, that's
We
fine.
are now voting in favor of nominations from the floor.
Yes,
That's the amendment. That's the
That's it.
nature of the amendment, Tom.
yes.
And then
Okay.
we'll vote on the amended version.
I understand that.
It's what we'll call the courtesy amendment.
Well done, sir. Well done, sir.
okay.
Okay, well done.
I'm doing my best here, guys.
Yeah, I know.
I,
Approved.
The only
this
person
is
who
this
raised,
is a
Daphne,
difficult process to use for voting, but
All right, very good. We done it.
Daphne,
Okay.
captured
the only
everybody?
person, Daphne, the only person who voted yes without raising their hand in the chat is Jim and Chaz, it looks like. They both voted yes.
Yeah, we're good.
Even
We're
though they
good.
didn't use the hands.
Amendments approved. Amendments
Okay, yeah,
approved.
but she's trying to record each name.
Yeah, I can't.
All right.
So Jim and Chaz, Daphne did
I
not
think
use
everybody
the,
needs to be quiet right now.
the chat.
Please be quiet.
You know what, guys? I'm just going to run through the names. If you're here, say aye. If you approve it, say nay. If you don't, okay? So let's go with Deb.
Who?
Yay.
Nay.
Who? Who?
You just raised your hand, Deb.
I said yay.
Yay.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
Okay.
Why don't we just say
The hands
yes?
Let's
better.
say yes. Let's say
Yeah.
yes or no, please. That'll be good. Okay.
Yes
How about
or no
yippee?
is better.
Bonnie,
Yay.
Lynn,
Yay.
Lynn's
Yay.
not here.
Mel,
Yes.
Jim, Jason,
Yes.
Arlene,
Yes.
Darren,
Who?
Not
Ruth?
here.
Who? is
Ruth?
that? Yes.
Chaz,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Neville,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
and Dean.
He's
Here.
not here.
Okay, thank you.
Neville moved the motion as amended.
Okay.
Okay, so the amended language has passed. Is there a motion to accept the procedures in full with the amended language?
It's already there.
Already been moved and seconded.
I will repeat the motion as amended.
That's what you have to. Second.
Okay, thank you. I will, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the roll again. Deb,
Yes.
Bonnie, Lynn,
Oh, wait a minute. Lynn gave me her proxy.
Good for her.
Actually, didn't realize, forgot. So voting yes for Lynn.
Okay, Mel,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Arlene,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
Chaz,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Neville,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Beth.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you all.
Move to
Um,
adjourn.
No, because we
Okay.
need to pick
I-
somebody to later. I don't think Steve realized Daphne and Gone when he made this proposal that we had one more procedural thing to do, which was conduct an election. And I agree with whoever it was who
Jesus.
thinks that it would be much easier for a staff person to send all this, collect and collate and send all this stuff around. But we need to pick somebody because we're being told that a staff person can't do that.
okay, so I have a number of folks who have their hands raised.
Oh my God.
I would recommend that Councilman Patoka be allowed to speak because
Yes.
he had something to say ahead of this, and he may be ready to depart.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And I did have a thought about a facilitator while planning is taking a step back. And amongst the group that is here right now, you have a planner with outstanding credentials in your midst. And I would say if she's willing to facilitate until the planning department returns,
No.
Susan Williams is it never time and has the capabilities to kind of pull things together until the planning department returns. And I think you can go on with, you can go on selecting a chair. Now, whether Susan has the interest or not is another question.
Okay,
you're
could we
muted.
have Susan's
Susan, you're muted.
email address?
Yeah, I'm
Susan,
not
you're
Susie,
muted.
Susie cc3@yahoo.com for anybody that remembers Frank Zappa.
I'm sorry,
And-
could you repeat that slower, please?
It's SUZYCC3@yahoo.com, and I'm on the overall list. But if everybody could send me their nominations and information.
I'm sorry, Susan, can you also type that in the chat box?
And actually,
Wait a minute.
Susan,
You're asking the slightly handicapped person to find the
chat. Susan, if you seem to be indicating that you're willing to do it, and that was a great suggestion of Izzy's. If that's the case, can Susan, you have the distribution list. Can you maybe send around something to everybody so they realize who you are? Just saying, I'm me, and send me your information if you're interested or something like that. Can you do that, Susan?
I don't have the whole list. I'm sure.
That was the next thing I was going to ask. I started to put it in the chat. If Daphne or Gone could send around a list of, like we have people on this list who aren't voting members, but we really need to know who the voting members are and how to communicate with each other. So if we could have a list, like the list that you just read out in the voice vote, if we could have that list, it would be, helpful, I think, with everyone's contact information, et cetera.
I think that it would be helpful to have everybody who participates, because I am not a voting member. I am Howard's guest from the Pine Ridge Association, but I'm more than happy to volunteer or be volunteered. So if you don't send around the whole list, then I'm not on it.
Well, we need the whole list.
Why don't we just give me the whole list and I'll figure it out from there.
But we need to know who on the list
I
is
think
a
Susan,
voting member.
great Susan, perfect,
I'll
perfect
get
Susan,
it.
move it. Jesus.
I'll get it.
Folks, I will
The list.
send, the full distribution list. I will send the list of voting members. I will also send the updated information on the available funds that we were talking about earlier in the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, it is now 8:50. We
That's
have
my
gotten
bedtime.
through our primary agenda item in terms of the documents for the chair. If there is no further business, I would entertain. a
Daphne,
motion to
I
adjourn.
would like to make a motion, if I may, please. It'll be quick, and what I'd like to do is I would like to nominate Tom Fekete for chair of the group, please.
We're not taking nominations right now.
Well, I would like to make that mention, please, because according to the document that we have just approved, we are saying that we can take nominations between now and the 10th of April.
And
So
the
I
thing,
am
the thing
making
to
that
do with that is
nomination.
to email it to me with
Yep.
his information. That's the process that I just heard.
Yeah. So I think it's fine.
Well done,
If
Susan.
you could just send
Jesus.
it to Susan for now.
Come on. That's fine. That's great. Good idea, Susan. Thank you. That's perfect.
I'm sorry, what was that again, please?
Send your
Just send
nomination
in-
to Susan with your second is my
Excellent.
suggestion.
Will
Okay.
do. Will
Great.
do.
Move to
Thank
adjourn,
you.
please.
Second,
Okay.
All those in favor? Very good. Well done, Daphne. You did a hell of a job.
All right,
I
thank
I
you.
don't think that it was exactly, I think it was Daphne's role to decide when the meeting is adjourned, which is probably now, but Daphne, I
Oh my
want to thank
God.
you for facilitating, and I'll leave it to you.
Thank you.
Nice
We
seeing
have a
everyone.
motion and a second to adjourn the meeting, and the meeting is adjourned. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Night, everyone.
Thank you, Daphne.
It's unnecessary.